Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My name's Megan Jesse. I'm the Assistant CAO for the county, and I want to thank you all for taking a little bit of time out of your evening. We have a number of speakers, but before I just want to recognize a couple folks in the room. We have County Supervisors Ritter and Kimmelshoe, as well as representatives from Senator Dali's office and Congressman LaMalfa. So thank you all for taking a little bit of time. I also want to recognize the undersheriff in the room. And then I have 4 speakers for you tonight. We're here to talk about the county's consideration of a 1-cent sales tax. And so I'm going to first turn it over to Chief Administrative Officer Andy Pickett, and then we'll have the Library Director, Misty Wright, Fire Chief Garrett Sholin, and Sheriff Corey Honey. I am going to ask you to hold questions till the end of the presentation, and then we'll have a few minutes to take some questions. We are recording the evening's presentation so that we can post those online. And I want to make sure before folks leave, we do have some postcards sitting at the door. We are really looking for your feedback, and so there's an opportunity to put feedback on those postcards. There's also a QR code if you'd rather do the survey online. And you can either mail those postcards to us or you can turn them in and we'll take them here. So whatever works best for you. And with that, we'll go ahead and get started.
I want to be the last clap.
Better than the last laugh, right?
Exactly.
All right, as Megan said, my name is Andy Pickett. I am the county administrator. And something about me is that I am not a Butte County original. I am not from here, which is important because I first came to Butte County on a visit about 25 years ago. My family and I were out visiting the area. We had 2 toddlers at the time, and about 25 years ago, and we came to Butte County and we immediately fell in love with Butte County. First of all, it was beautiful. It was just absolutely stunningly beautiful here, and we said, this is awesome. And then the people, very friendly, very generous, just a really nice feel to it. And then it was, yeah, like that. And then there was this feeling of safety. It just felt like a really safe place. And you know, my wife and I looked at each other and said, like, this is the quality of life that we want. This is where we want to raise our children. So we made it a point to start looking at how do we move from where we were to here. And we worked at it and we came here because of the quality of life. That is really important to us. And in fact, it's always been really important. I have made my career in a place where I can work influencing the quality of life. That's what I've made my career. And that's really what today is all about, is talking about that quality of life. Because local government provides the building blocks that allows the quality of life to surface in an area. And right now, we're in a place where those services, those building blocks, are in jeopardy. And that is what's going on. What we have is a situation where the cost of services increases faster than our revenues. So that's one aspect. I'll spend a little bit of time about that in a minute. The other aspect is that Sacramento, the state government, has this bad habit of pushing their problems onto us. They send us what they can't figure out. They tell us to run these programs, they tell us to do these services, and they provide some money or no money at all. It is what we call it in the industry unfunded mandates. They send them our way, and then that uses up our revenues that we have other priorities for. And then lastly, another bad habit in Sacramento is that funds that we have, they take them back. And that's happened to us. So between all of these things, we're in a situation where our ability to fund services erodes over time. Next slide, please. And take a look at this. If you've ever lived in another county like I have, and then lived in Butte County, you will understand when I say that the tax burden in Butte County is exceptionally low compared to other counties. This chart here shows the per capita tax revenue for the state, and a few of our neighbors are listed here. You'll see that we have about $400 per person, and look at some of the counties around us. 500, 600, 700. This is what other counties have in terms of per capita tax revenue. And I'm gonna walk you through the history of this. Next slide, please. The history goes back to Prop 13. That is really where the story for this situation begins. In fact, it begins before Prop 13. Before Prop 13, counties had the ability to raise property taxes. Many of you remember that. And what was happening is that there were many counties that were increasing property taxes that many felt were too fast, too high, and many people were getting priced out of their homes. So residents, voters took matters into their own hand, passed Prop 13, which did a couple of things. Number one, it did not allow the county to raise property taxes anymore. And the way the property taxes were done, as you all know, is that once the tax was set, it could grow 2% per year. So it limited how much that tax could be spent. And here's the thing. While most of the state was busy raising their property taxes, here in Butte County, we were doing the opposite. We were lowering our property taxes. That's what was going on here. For several years prior to Prop 13, the county, the board, voted to decrease property taxes. So then, when Prop 13 came in, it locked us into a very low tax rate. Remember that slide before, the 7th lowest? That's the genesis of that. We were locked into a very low tax rate. And then, as our costs increase, the revenues to support those programs do not increase at the same pace. So look at the chart. There is that line, that area between costs and revenues. Every year when we do the budget, and get out of the way here, every year when we do the budget, that area is where we have to reduce services in order to balance the budget. We have to have a balanced budget every year. So every year we have to bring down that red line in order to match that green line. So at first it was, I don't want to say it was easy to do, but there were some options. For example, there might have been programs that were redundant that we could combine, right? So we consolidated programs, we eliminated redundancies, and then when those options were done, we were doing things like deferring maintenance. Instead of maintaining our buildings, we were shifting those funds in order to maintain public safety, because that's always been the board priority, is to protect public safety services. That's the foundation, that's the building block that I talked about of that quality of life. So everything that we do is to protect those services. So if the choice was to maintain buildings or maintain public safety, we took the funding from maintaining buildings and put it into public safety. Now those don't come back, so those buildings no longer get maintained. Then when we couldn't do that anymore, we started looking at non-mandated services, and we started reducing those non-mandated services. And then when there were no more non-mandated services to be reduced, we started looking internally into our own support services. These are the business services to run the county. We started reducing those, and we reduced them to the point where there was nothing left to reduce. And yet, because of this structure, we have to continually reduce services. So at that point, we started getting into some reduction areas that you never want to get into. For example, the library. One of our greatest services that we have, one of the most popular services, one of our most used services. You get to the point where, since there's nothing left to reduce and we have to balance the budget, we have to recommend library reductions. For the past decade, you've seen how we have systematically, year by year, reduced library services, and that has been in order to keep public safety services going. Now, I don't mean to imply that public safety has been held harmless, because as these folks here know, we have reduced their staffing as well over time. We've been very conscious about how we've been doing that, because we want to preserve the critical services. And that is how we try to balance the budget. Now, next slide, please. And this is what brings us here today, is that we have run out of options. We have run out of places to reduce that doesn't impact the rest of the library and public safety, to the services that you would all notice. The only way that we'll be able to balance the budget in the future without additional revenue is to reduce public safety services and library. And let me be very, very clear as to what that means. When I'm talking about reducing public safety services, I'm talking about closing fire stations, multiple. I'm talking about eliminating the library completely. I'm talking about taking deputies off the street, reducing prosecutors, reducing probation officers. Those are the options that are left on the table. There's nothing left at this point. Next slide, please. And this is why we are now talking about additional revenues. A 1-cent sales tax would allow us to generate enough revenue to maintain those critical services and even to restore some of the services that we've reduced, like the library. Now, I'm keenly aware that not a single person likes paying more taxes. I don't like paying more taxes. Nobody in here likes paying more taxes. But without additional revenue, at this point, we do not have a choice in how to balance the budget. And to me, this is a community decision. This is not my decision to make. This is not, I shouldn't be the one who says, let's not have fire stations, let's not have libraries. This is something that the community needs to be involved in. And this is why having something to the voters, to me, makes a lot of sense. The voters can decide what level of service they want to pay for. Next slide, please. One of the great things about having a local tax measure is that this would be locally controlled money. The state couldn't touch it, they couldn't take it, and they couldn't tell us how to use it. This would be 100% locally decided money as to how to use. This would allow us to fully staff all fire stations. It would allow us to have all the sheriff's deputies that we need. It would allow us to maintain prosecutors and probation officers and to fully have a library open 7 days a week, every day. What a dream, huh? With that Misty Wright is our library director, and she's gonna come up and she's gonna tell us a little bit about the library and library services.
Thank you, Andy. So, like Andy said, my name is Misty Wright. I'm the library director. I've been here in Butte County for almost 5 years, so I'm not an original resident either. I'm actually from South Louisiana. And I came to Butte County. I was looking for a job in a management position that had some scenery and some really good weather, and that's what I found here in Butte County. And I've been here for almost 5 years. I love it here. It's so beautiful, and the community is amazing. But let me talk to you about the library. Here in Butte County, and just libraries in general, they're always seen as kind of a safe space, it's referred to as a third place. And what the library is it's one of those places that's trusted in the community where people can go, that's not work, it's not home. It's just, hello? Okay. It's just a place where people can go and, you know, if it's hot outside, they can come to the library. If it's cold outside, they can come to the library. If they need a space to just kind of be without having to spend money, they can come to the library. Anybody can come to the library, everybody is welcome. And that's what's so important in our community. So as Andy was talking, for the past decade, due to, you know, budget reductions, library hours, as you can see, have been greatly reduced. And the last time that the hours were reduced were in December of 2022. And we do still have 6 branches open. We made sure that when we were reducing the hours that we kept hours at least one day in every community, because that was very important to us, that all the communities had at least some time. So our staff has been greatly reduced, but thankfully our staff is very mighty and they love serving the community, and so they're able to put on, you know, all these lovely programs that we have for you guys. And we have programs for people of all ages, whether it's babies, baby story times, or all the way up to our seniors, where we have our Access to Technology program, which is one of our new programs where we do one-on-one training teaching seniors and disabled adults how to use technology. And you know, all of these are just really important. We have, all of this is happening in every single branch. We've got story times, 12 story times a week happening across every single branch. So hundreds of kids and their parents are able to interact with each other. And I've heard even just tonight before this meeting, where parents were talking about how those story times were so important whenever their kids were really small. Because that is another one of the times when some parents, they may not know other parents whenever they first have their children, and those story times are really good times to be able to network with other families. So that's why you can see that the reductions, we could have story times every day. We could have late hours if we had, more money and more staff, and we could have an afternoon or an evening story time. Some of the other programs that the library has is we have a literacy department, and our literacy department helps adults learn how to read. Right now we have 23 pairs of learners, and that's volunteers assisting other adults with how to read, we have ESL. They help them with like citizenship test preparedness. We also have different programs where we have our mobile library goes out to preschools across the county. And there's also a partnership that we have with the Day Reporting Center with our literacy department. So as you can see, the library reaches just every single facet and member of this community. So if we were unable to have funding, then we would lose all the libraries, like Andy said. So we would lose that place for people to come and enjoy Wi-Fi. We've had, in 2023, 366,000 hours of Wi-Fi usage. And we've had 18,000 hours of public internet usage where people come to the library to use the computer and the internet because they might not have any access at home. And this has become really important, especially during our disaster relief efforts. A lot of people came straight to the library to fill out their paperwork for their insurance. And also a lot of people came straight to the library. Hello? Sorry. As a place to be because they didn't know where else to go. And so they came straight to the library because it was a trusted place and they felt safe and the staff care about the community enough for that. So, yeah, I'll be taking questions at the end, but now I'd like to go ahead and toss it to Chief Sholin.
All right, good evening. You know.
Yep, he tried to do it last time.
I saw that.
We have a gentleman's agreement now.
Good stuff. Oh, good evening, everybody. Once again, I'm Garrett Sholin, and up here to talk a little bit about your fire department here in Butte County. Very proud of it. It's, in my opinion, in Northern California, it is the pinnacle of what fire departments look to and reach out to daily. I hear from other fire agencies. I just heard from Shasta County today on what our model and how it works. But it takes a lot to keep that together and continue the levels of service that we have here. You'll notice I'm in a CAL FIRE uniform. That is because the County of Butte since 1931 has been in an agreement for providing services. CAL FIRE does as far as personnel. We manage the county's fire department. But it's important to note that all of the facilities and the equipment and all the other day-to-day operations are funded through the county. And they own that equipment. So the employees are state employees, but we're very much at home here in Butte County. I've been here since 1995 with the fire department. I came here because of the fire department's level of service it provides and the level of professionalism that it is here for the citizens of the county. So raised a family, I'm still here. Been the fire chief for the last 2 years. And during this time, we've seen some of the challenges that Mr. Pickett has alluded to, and I'll touch on those. But just to give you a little bit about how the interoperability here works in Butte County and Butte County Fire Department. We operate 10 fire engines throughout the county, but it's a regional fire protection model, meaning that because of the other partnerships from the cities of Paradise, Gridley, Biggs, and now Oroville City also contracting with CAL FIRE, we're able to pool our resources of personnel and provide a very high level of service across boundaries to inside the unincorporated areas as well as the cities, and flex both directions. So that's been a huge benefit to the county over the years. And we also have an agreement with the city of Chico when we provide fire protection here, both in the city and they as well in the outskirts of the city for the unincorporated areas. We also provide service not just for firefighting. One of the biggest commitments of our resources is to medical aids. 60 to 80% of our responses are to medical aids. And when you look at the unincorporated area and our ambulances services, the response time can be anywhere by contractual agreements, 30 to 45 minutes for an ambulance to get to the unincorporated areas outside the cities. So on our county fire engines, we have EMTs. And so they're able to get there, provide that medical care anywhere from 4 to 20 minutes at the most in some of the most outlining areas. But we have a challenge. And we have a challenge with the number of fire engines that we have had staffed. And we've seen a decline over that since 2017 by 2. And so it slows down our ability, once we have multiple calls, to take care of those medical aid runs. And so when we look at an incident such as a structure fire happening, we have national standards that fire departments look to strive to across the nation. And on initial response, they look to have dispatched an initial 911 call with 17 firefighters to the incident. And so right now, with the way our fire department is staffed and our ability to respond for Butte County Fire Department, we're able to only produce 9. So when we only get 9 firefighters on initial fire, once they get them determined they need more, they're pulling more resources from more communities. And so if we have medical aids and stuff in those outlying communities outside of where the fire's at, we're pulling resources from even further away to help with that response. So this measure would greatly increase our capabilities and our staffing level and models to meet some of the national standards that are out there and provide a better level of service to our citizens. We also provide not only firefighting and medical aid, but hazardous material response. Butte County Fire Department serves as the managing agency of the only OES certified Type 1 hazardous material response team north of Sacramento, all the way to the Oregon border. So we provide a very high level capabilities in support of some of the challenges we see in Butte County from rail. You can see here in South Chico, you have the large fuel plant here. All those sort of situations our folks train for, as well as the other hazardous material response disasters. We also have the only, Butte County Fire Department has the only Type 1, which is the highest rating water rescue and technical rescue team standalone fire department in the state of California. Office of Emergency Services sponsors other teams. The closest one is Sacramento Fire Department. But we do it in-house. We train our own folks, and we do that because we have the Feather River, we have Lake Oroville, we have those big waterways that we need to be able to support the needs of the community there, and as well as the flooding challenges that we see, lots of disasters in here. So our fire department strives to maintain this level of service. So if we were to lose any more personnel, we are in jeopardy of losing some of those services that we see that I mentioned there. We've also had areas outside of just emergency response that we've seen some challenges in the last few years of being able to help our folks, and that's an internal thing, both in our administration, our training level. We are down to providing what we would call mandatory training, and in more advanced training and subjects we'd like to have for our firefighters, we have to prioritize those. And so, and along with our volunteer program. Our volunteer program has seen a steady decline, but we are about 126 volunteers right now strong. They're well committed, and that level of training needs to be maintained for them as well as our career firefighters. Fire prevention and education. So we go out to schools, we try to meet with them, provide that level of knowledge for the youngsters on what to do if there's a fire in their home, but more importantly, our fire investigations. Right now, the fire department in the county does not provide on a routine basis advanced fire investigation. When we start talking arson and stuff, that's outside of the CAL FIRE's response, just the county fire department. So those needs are not being met there right now. And finally, our dispatching. We've had to reduce dispatchers, which is the folks that answer the 911 calls. And we're at a level now where we are forcing a lot of our folks to work, or mandatory overtime. And so with the reduction of personnel that we've seen over the last years, the health and wellness of our employees is one of my highest priorities. And so with this measure, it's going to be great to see if it does pass, getting those numbers and things back up to where we are supporting the fire department at a level that can support our public. So I thank you for your time, and pass the sheriff home.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming out. Honestly, I wish there were more people. This is a really, really important issue. The fact that you guys came out tonight, I think, speaks to the fact that you understand how important this is. I'm hoping that as we spend more time educating our community, they also come to understand how important this is for our entire community. I'm going to start off today. I'm dealing with a pinched nerve in my neck, and it's causing a lot of pain. So if I start waving this arm around, that's what that's all about. So just bear with me, if you will.
So it's not a dance move then?
It is not a dance move, but I appreciate it. Yeah, it's trying to keep the pain and the tingling from going in there. So I think I'd like to advance 2 slides. There, perfect. Let's stay right here. I'm going to start off by telling you a little bit about the sheriff's office. I think many of you have a concept of what we do, but maybe not in its entirety. And then I'm going to tell you a little bit about the things that we really have going for us here in Butte County, because we have some incredible things going for us. And then I'm going to tell you a little bit about a philosophy that I have adopted that has gotten me through my tenure as sheriff. So first off, Butte County Sheriff's Office. I am your sheriff, elected by the people of Butte County. In addition to being the sheriff, I am the coroner. And I think the most visible aspect of our, the most visible aspect of our organization are probably the deputies who drive around in patrol cars, responding to calls for service and hopefully preventing crimes from occurring. But that's just a small segment of what the Butte County Sheriff's Office does. In addition to responding for calls for service and emergencies and trying to prevent crime and investigate crime, I also run the jail, the county jail. As I mentioned a moment ago, I'm the coroner, which results in me being responsible and my staff being responsible for investigating certain kinds of deaths. I'm also in charge of court security. Also run the civil division, which means that if you file a lawsuit against somebody or a landlord and somebody's not paying the rent, or you need a restraining order against somebody, that's my deputies that ultimately process and handle those kinds of things. I run the county's primary dispatch centers, primary PSAP. All of the 911 calls come through our center, and then, for example, fire. If there's a fire call, we transfer it over to fire from there. We have a whole host of programs related to our corrections division that you may or may not be aware. You heard about one of them a moment ago in terms of a collaboration between us and the library in our day reporting center. Lot of moving parts for the sheriff's office, many of them that you probably don't see. And if you live in one of the cities, you probably think that your local law enforcement agency is the agency that's going to take care of all of your needs. And by and large, they take care of a lot of your needs. In the city of Chico, probably the biggest, the second biggest or the biggest law enforcement agency next to us, has the capabilities of responding to the vast majority of things that occur within the cities. But the other cities in town here in Butte County, Paradise and Oroville and Gridley and Biggs and so forth, they have small PDs, but at the end of the day, when something major happens, who do they call? Well, they call the sheriff, and that's who responds. And we're the ones that go out and we provide that backstop. So in addition to providing law enforcement in the unincorporated areas, we are the backstop for the incorporated areas. But none of these jurisdictions operate in a vacuum. They all have to operate within the system. And so you may have police officers in the city who are able to patrol and enforce the laws and perhaps make arrests of people committing crimes. But when they do that, where do they take them? They bring them to the jail, the Butte County Jail, which is run by the sheriff's office and run by the county. And if there is a determination to be made as to whether or not a prosecution occurs, it is done by our district attorney, who prosecutes cases for the entirety of the county. And the court system handles cases through the entirety of the county. You need to have court security in the court system. And our probation department provides probation services for the entirety of the county. All of those services are funded through the county and through county revenue, which is why this conversation has become so important. But beyond the law enforcement aspect of my job, you probably, if you've lived in Butte County any time, you probably come to realize that we also have a pretty robust response when it comes to natural disasters and fires. My partner, the chief, and I have worked very, very closely together over the last few years to respond to major disasters and major incidents. And you see that it takes both sides of the public safety spectrum to respond to those. While they're out there battling the fire, we're the ones who are managing the evacuations and providing security in evacuate areas and working with folks to get them back in when the time was right, and so forth and so on. And the bottom line is I need to have a sufficient number of resources capable of responding to those kinds of emergencies if they occur. So that's an overview of what I do as the sheriff and what my staff does. And I'm going to tell you that I feel fortunate to be the sheriff of Butte County for a number of reasons. One is I think Butte County is an incredible place to live and work. I think it's unique here. I have an opportunity to speak to my counterparts throughout the state of California, and I wouldn't trade my position as sheriff of Butte County with anybody else's statewide. The fact is, I think we here in Butte County collectively, through our communities and our citizens and our local leaders, have created an environment that is able to navigate some of the really most adverse conditions, but still maintain a pretty high quality of life considering some of the challenges and situations that we've had to deal with and that are constantly being visited upon us. I will tell you that I'm distrustful of the state government. I find that the state government typically passes laws and regulations that are a one-size-fit-all approach that doesn't necessarily work well for what we have going on here in our jurisdiction. I would prefer to have our local leaders make decisions about what happens here in Butte County because they are closely connected with the people who those decisions affect. The farther away from you get to Butte County, Sacramento, Washington, D.C., the less likely they are to understand the uniqueness of our particular situation. I have seen in other communities where they have cut public safety, both law enforcement and fire, and I've seen the devastation that's caused those communities. Fortunately, we live in a community, and I'll give credit to the board of supervisors. There's a lot of counties where your board of supervisors are completely dysfunctional. They don't work well together. There's infighting, there's political divisiveness. I will tell you that our board works very, very well together, and I feel very supported by them. The fact that we're here today, having staved off significant cuts to public safety, is a credit to the fact that they've really tried to manage the situation without resorting to this particular option. I told you that I would talk to you a little bit about how I've survived during my tenure as sheriff, and that is this. I always try to find opportunity in adversity. And we've had a lot of adversity here in Butte County. And as a result of that, I've had a good amount of time, or I've had a lot of opportunities to look for opportunity within adversity, if you will. And I think that this particular situation, although adverse, because no one wants to ask people to pay more taxes, does provide opportunity. And the opportunity is that these funds would go directly to the county. Our local leaders, through our board of supervisors, would be the ones who made determinations as to how that revenue would be spent. It would keep, we would be able to keep the state's grubby hands off of that money so that it could be used for the things that are important to this community. And I'm confident, given their track record, that they are going to utilize it to provide the kinds of services we talked to tonight: a robust library system, a robust fire department, a robust law enforcement judicial system. And if they don't, unlike the people in Sacramento or Washington, who you probably can't get a hold of anyway, you can show up at a board meeting and you can talk to them, or they'll show up in a meeting and you can talk to them, and they're going to be far more open to listening to what you have to say. And I certainly can get a hold of them and talk to them and have much more influence over them than we do anybody in Sacramento or anybody in Washington, D.C. for that matter. I think that I think it's fair to say that during my tenure as sheriff, I have had many opportunities to make tough decisions, to make unpopular decisions, to call it like I see it, and this is no different. I don't like coming to you and telling you we need your help. I don't like coming to you and telling you that we're going to need to raise revenue. But my job is to keep the wolves away, and I'm telling you right now, the wolves are at the door. We need to do something about this, and that's why I'm asking, and I think my counterparts are asking, that you strongly consider voting for this, assuming it gets on the ballot, and I'm confident that will be. I'm gonna have conversations with every single board member and make sure they understand how important this. I think they do, but I don't think anybody wants to be in a position where we don't have a sufficient number of firefighters or sufficient number of law enforcement officers capable of responding to whatever disaster or incident comes our way. The last thing I'm going to talk about is we're currently in a process of constructing a jail, and if I get that next slide, there we go. This is a direct result of a transfer of responsibility from the state of California on to counties back in 2011 with AB 109, when they shifted massive responsibilities to the counties and again didn't provide us with the required funding that we need to do it. We recognized that we needed a different kind of facility to deal with the inmate population that we have, and so since 2011 we've been in the process of getting that done. I've had tremendous support from our community, tremendous support from our board, and we're in the process of building this new state-of-the-art facility, which is desperately needed. It's due to be done in 2025. But here's the problem, folks. I don't have enough deputies to open it. I need to hire 24 deputies to get this thing open. And without the revenue, we're going to be in a situation where that's going to be extraordinarily challenging. The last piece that I'll tell you is over this mid-year budget, we had to eliminate 22 positions out of our department. And to meet the budget for this upcoming fiscal year, we've had to cut 17. That's a tremendous number of people cut out of our department. You can imagine how difficult it is for us to continue to respond for that. So that's my pitch. I wouldn't be asking if I didn't honestly and thoroughly and truly believe that we need to do this. And if I didn't think this was the most viable solution, given the fact that it provides local control, I wouldn't be recommending it here today. So with that, I think we'll take questions if you have any. And if not, we'll just all go away. Yes.
So you talked about how each of your programs will be affected. One of the major concerns I have is about the unhoused people. And so what kind of vision do you all have for improving services to the unhoused and making them housed?
Yeah. I'll start at that, and then I'll give my counterparts an opportunity. I'm going to tell you right now, and if that were an easy question to answer, someone would have already answered it, right? You talk about, Governor Newsom, dating back to when he first came into office, talked about how he was going to solve the homeless problem, right? That was a campaign promise. And look where we're at today, right? It's just exasperated, it got worse and worse and worse. And I think that it's gotten worse and worse statewide. I think that Butte County, in many respects, has trended or fared somewhat better than the rest of the state, but it's still a pretty significant problem right here. I think that the answer to the problem with the unhoused is it's a multifaceted, multi-dimension problem. There isn't one single thing that you can point to and say, if we do this, it'll solve for that. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you have a whole host of things. You have, the availability of affordable housing is part of the issue, right? You have mental health issues, right? You have drug addiction, you have crime, you have the availability of all these services. And I can tell you that if we're going to make any headway whatsoever in terms of addressing that problem, it's going to take a multidisciplinary, multifaceted approach, which we're well suited for here in Butte County given our collaborative nature. But if we're not properly resourced in some of the areas we talked about, for example, law enforcement and criminal justice, which does play a role in that, then you're not gonna have a fighting chance to deal with all those things. And I think that's the best I can offer for you with regard to that. Fair enough? Yeah. Anybody else have anything to add on that? No?
I just have a comment.
Yeah.
It's too bad, I mean, it wouldn't be any big deal for another percent sales tax if our inflation wasn't so high right now.
I agree with you.
Wouldn't be,
Yeah.
no big deal.
Yeah, and if I could solve that problem, I would do it too, yeah.
But I understand.
I wish you guys had asked for the tax increase before the city of Chico, because I think a lot that the Chico, that was voted on, and there wasn't a big turnout.
Yeah.
And there was only 1,550 votes that won the 1 cent sales tax for the city. And we see all this money that they're spending on the bike path.
Yeah.
And downtown, when, you know, in the grand scheme of things, there are a lot of other issues. We're not getting the police that we were promised. We're not getting the road services that we were promised to be fixed. I understand Butte County is a terrific county to live in. Your service to our community is so appreciated, and all of you people do a wonderful job. And it's just too bad that in the grand scheme of things, you weren't given that raise first, because multiple people benefit from the services you provide. Whereas I feel the city of Chico has taken advantage of us in some respects and not putting needed services before their wish list of nice things.
I appreciate that. I think the reason for that, though, goes directly to the heart of the people who lead Butte County, in particular our board of supervisors, because I think they were so reluctant to come to the community before it was absolutely necessary and ask for that. They were trying to solve the problem in other ways. But you're right, it created a timing issue that is a little bit more challenging for us. I appreciate your comments, and certainly if we're successful in that, I think that you'll have a very quality ear to the board in terms of how it's going to be spent for the things that we talked about in terms of public safety. But I appreciate your comments. And you had a question, right? Yeah.
Yeah, a question and a comment. I'm wondering where, I'm a retired public health nurse, and where are they?
Where are the public health nurses?
Where's Monica Sodas from to give us a talk about what public health is doing? Because that's a very important county function.
Yeah. Well, so Andy, you might be able to answer that a little bit, but correct me if I'm wrong, but public health doesn't rely as significantly on general fund dollars as these agencies do, correct? Come on up to make sure I don't screw this up, Andy. So county departments are funded a little bit differently. This is my maybe someday I'll aspiring CEO in training. Okay, so
the funding won't go toward behavioral health either?
Well, the funding, they have their own funding revenue sources that are different than the general fund. The general fund is the one that we're most challenged in. That's where we all rely upon the general fund. Without that, public health, behavioral health, some of those other ones have other funding sources that aren't as tenuous. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, and I'll add one more thing to that, and that is there are some the funds are divided up into two major categories. Local, yeah, it's fit. It is pickleball. Yeah. Two major categories: local controlled, the general fund, and the state mandated funds. On those, as you know, that's where how public health is funded. Part of the structure for public health, and I'm getting very inside baseball here, is to transfer some of those funds to other departments, and that allows us to run other services. With additional funds, we could stop that transfer and have public health keep all of that money for public health and improve the services. So yes, absolutely, public health would absolutely benefit from this.
Thank you. And then I have one comment. I'm a big Democrat. We have our Democratic Action Club meetings in this room the fourth Tuesday of every month.
The fourth Tuesday?
The fourth Tuesday of every month. We're having a screening of a great film about homelessness. It's going to be the next meeting. But many groups use this space. This is so rare in Butte County to have a free space where you can have, you know, the origami club and the Tamagotchi club or whatever to do their thing. And we so appreciate the library and having access to this, and it's a great resource, and thank you.
Well,
We appreciate that, and hopefully we can,
you know, keep that kind of thing going.
Yeah, I'm good for 1%.
Thank you, sir. Tell your friends and your neighbors.
So I was just curious, you said that you have 5 deputies on rotation at any time. I'm wondering how many deputies you have on the force altogether?
Yeah, that's a good question. So actually, I was talking to my undersheriff about this. So we've now dropped below Chico PD in terms of our staffing level, although we cover a significantly greater jurisdictional area and about an equal number in terms of population. And so, what are we at right now?
We're allocated 100 positions. We currently have 11 vacancies. This is on the deputy sheriff's side. Currently have 11 vacancies, and then 5 in the academy and 1 slated to go to the academy.
Right.
So when you're talking about actual filled positions right now, we're at about 81 out of 100.
And that doesn't include the ones we had to give up in the prior budget cuts to get to where we're at. And that only includes half the house, right? That doesn't include my correctional deputies who staff the jail as well. So it's really very, very challenging.
Yeah.
You know, you talk about, and I was having a conversation with Andy, and I'm sure the members of the board probably heard it today. Somebody came in and was talking about how they wanted to have more deputies in the Bangor area. And I want more deputies in the Bangor area. Those unincorporated, underserved areas need to have protection. Cohasset and Forest Ranch and Bangor and, you know, all those kind of places. I used to have a program called the Designated Area Deputy Program, which assigned deputies to those locations where they got to know the communities, they worked in the communities. The problem is I don't have enough staffing for that anymore, and so now it's incumbent upon the deputies who are handling calls down in the valley to respond up into the foothill areas, which you know is problematic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly
And
right.
you said you needed 44 to staff the new mental health facility?
20, well, the new jail, so we need to hire 24 deputies to hire to staff the new jail. And interestingly enough, the new facility, so our current jail was built basically in 2 phases, one in 1963 and the other one in 1994. Neither of them contemplated the world that we'd be living in today. I have 3 medical beds right now, 3. And an average daily population of about 530, 540 people. And the length of stay in jail is longer now post AB 109. And we're finding more and more people with medical
issues and mental health issues.
addiction issues, things like that. The new facility will have a 38-bed
Medical.
mental health wing. I'm very excited about being able to offer the continuity of service for that. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
This question is probably best answered by
Somebody else? Fantastic.
This plan has no guarantee what chunk will go to the library in perpetuity. There's no guarantee at all that the library won't again experience cut out of the general fund. Can you provide a guarantee?
That is a great question. There is a definition of how taxes can be structured in order to be passed by certain thresholds. There's specific taxes and then there's general taxes. A specific tax is one that would do exactly what you suggest, is the tax will be spent as follows. A general tax says the tax will be under the control of the Board of Supervisors in our case, and it's under their discretion. The thresholds for those are the key point here,
Yes,
right?
I
So,
understand that.
so in order for us to designate what you're suggesting, we would need a 2/3 vote in order to pass. A general would require 50% plus 1. So the specific one is by and large unachievable. So here's what we do, is look at the history of the board and the priorities for the board, and go back to Prop 13 and look at all of the things that the boards have reduced over time before getting to the library. right? So I think you can get a sense of board priorities by looking at the history. So while we cannot say it will be spent a particular way, I think that history speaks very loudly as to what priorities have been over the years.
And a question for you.
Yeah.
I understand that hiring bonuses and retention bonuses have been passed. Where is the money for that coming from?
So, point of clarification, there's no retention bonus. We're not paying people to stay. We have offered a hiring bonus for the position of correctional deputy only. That's the only position that we have instituted that. That is because we're in desperate need of hiring correctional deputies in order to staff this facility. That was a decision that it took us a long time to get to because we were reluctant, quite frankly, to utilize those funds for that purpose, but given where we're at, we decided it was all needed. The funding for that is coming basically out of a couple of different funding sources. One of them is some one-time funding that was given to the county by the state of California that was allocated to the Board of Supervisors. They put money towards the hiring bonuses. In addition to that, I asked that some of the money that we had set aside to hire correctional deputies as we planned out into the future, as well as some of the money that we save in terms of salary savings, is being put towards those bonuses. And the bonuses have had some positive impact. Right off the bat, we were able to see the number of recruitment goes up. It's starting to dwindle down now, and I think we may have run its course in terms of its effectiveness. But we were able to hire 11 people utilizing those bonuses. All right. Yeah.
Sorry, I know that everybody's probably ready to go home.
That's okay.
I was just curious, so obviously the 1% or 1 cent to the dollar, where did that number come from in regards to, you realizing whether or not that number will be sufficient enough to accommodate this request?
So from your question, can I assume that Senator Daly would propose a 2% or 3%? Is that, no?
I mean.
That'll be the headline, folks.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Okay.
No, definitely not. I'm just curious reasons.
No, great question. So what we looked at is how do we fix the situation going forward in a way that we don't find ourselves 10 years down the road, identical spot, right? So we looked at a number that allows us to restore services and to grow to the services that we need and then be able to maintain that over time. The 1 cent would allow us to have this fix in place really in perpetuity. We should not find ourselves in this place ever again if this passes.
I think you gotta find that balance, right?
Yeah.
Enough to do it, but not too much to address things. That's the piece.
So I don't, maybe if the sheriff wants to take one more question, I think
We're
I
done?
want to.
Oh, one more? Okay, you're the last one.
If by chance, would the DAD program be able to go back into effect with this as well?
If I can hire these deputies, we will absolutely get our DAD program back in. That's a critical program.
That would be the 17 back, or would you need back to
So
that?
I've got a bunch of vacancies to fill, but we probably start filling various critical positions and start building our DAD program back in the areas that were of the highest need. Concal, exactly. Yeah, how long have you lived up there?
Since the fire.
Yeah, okay, right. So you understand it's important. I mean, it's,
Yes.
yeah. And you understand how long it takes to get there?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you. I want to thank you all for coming tonight. Please do make sure to either fill out the postcard or you can fill out the survey online. You can send in the postcard to us. Also, if you have questions or comments that come up later, info@buttecounty.net. You can email additional feedback or comments there. I really appreciate you all for being here tonight and hope you enjoy the rest of your evening.